Hello and welcome to the G3 Plus podcast. I'm very happy today to be speaking to Kate Chambers. Hello, Kate.
Hi, nice to see you, Lewis.
Nice
Even
to see
if virtually.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been able to meet up in person. There's been a lot happening with you in your professional life since we last managed to kind of meet you at the ICE show, but that was in 2019. Kate, the pandemic has changed quite a few things. Lots of people's careers and things have changed recently over the last 18 months, and yours is no exception. From helming the industry's largest gaming event, ICE, where are you today? I just want to update our listeners and readers of where's Kate Chambers at now?
I think I'm in a very different place than I was maybe 8 months ago in October last year. Okay. I think that being cast adrift, if I can put it like that, in the middle of the pandemic, when I think everyone was working harder than they've ever worked before, trying to work out what was happening and where they should go, it was a real jolt to the system for me. And I'm used to being busy. I was always on a flight, like everyone in the gaming industry. I was working hard. I was managing a big team of people, not just based in London, but across the world. And I think suddenly it's like losing my right arm, I think. And I put my out of office on and spent 4 days not doing very much. And then thought, I can't. What am I going to do? Spend the next year watching crap daytime TV just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I think being in the house alone, so I had to do something. And I think one of the things I did strangely was I wrote myself a blog. Okay. So every couple of months I would sit down and write down how I was feeling.
Just for you, just for you to...
Just for me. A lot of people reached out to me and said, and I mentioned this, and they said, "Oh, can we see it?" I was like, "No." It's quite personal. Maybe one day I'll share it. But I think looking back on it, I read it last week actually, and looking back, I'm in a wholly different place than I was before. Much happier, much more focused. Back to being who I am, I guess, which is just makes me happier, I suppose, to be happy than.
I described to you before we were talking about this the kind of tortuous hokey cokey that you've been through over the last 8 months. I just wanted to kind of find out. A little bit about what's been going on, what you can tell us about the departures and retentions, and you're obviously an advisor now to the ICE show. What was taking place during that time, Kate? What can you tell us about your, from running the the largest gaming show in the world to now being an advisor, and what have you been doing since then, and what was happening at the time? Because your personal journey was, it sounds as though you went through an ordeal, but what was actually happening at the time?
I think that I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think that I knew though that I needed just to take some time to work out what I wanted to do, and it had to be right for me.
Okay.
So forget Clarion, forget gaming, forget everything else. I knew that I needed to do something for me, and I think that it took quite a lot of time, 6 months really, for me to go, right, that's what I want to do. And through that time I was talking on and off to Clarion. I found it very hard just to walk away, because I'd invested so much of myself, physically myself, emotionally and intellectually myself in developing that brand. It was very hard to step away, and actually I thought it was quite disrespectful of me just to simply shut the door and walk away and go, you know what, you made this decision, you're on your own. And I knew actually I owed the gaming industry something. They've been very kind to me, welcomed me. I've made a lot of friends, and I found it quite disrespectful. So I was continuing to talk to Clarion, or if I saw something or had an idea, I would email Alex over it, even though, you know, just as a thought.
This is Alex Pratt, the new group MD of Clarion.
Yeah, and I guess leaving the door open like that encouraged them, I suppose, to see maybe I still had something to offer. So really, along with developing what I wanted to do for myself, I started conversations with them about what could I add, what could I still add, and then we came up with a role which I think is good for me, because you do your best work when you're happy. Good for the market, and if it's good for the market, then it's good for Clarion, I guess.
I guess the easy route would have been just to accept a consultancy role with Clarion and kind of ambassador your way into retirement. When did you choose to set up what you have set up, which is now Fulwood Media? I just want to give you the chance to explain a little bit about the goals and ambitions of the business and how you describe Fulwood as well. What's its purpose?
Retirement, Lewis. God.
I know it's a way off, but you know, you had the journey that you could have slipped out the back door quite, you know, smoothly and quietly, and just taken an easier role than setting up a new company, a new business for yourself as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, but I think that that wasn't. I don't think that's ever going to be me. I think that I'm too active, and I've still got maybe a lot more to give. I'm quite creative by nature, and I led that ICE team in a very creative way. So as opposed to a very data-driven way, and data has its part, but so does creativity. And I think it's hard sometimes to be both, and I definitely sit on that more creative side. So creating things, developing ideas and taking them to market, and that research and exploration that goes around that is something that I love doing. And so it seemed to me that, hey, I was known. I think my team used to go, oh my God, here she goes again. I used to come out of my office when we had a problem and go, I know what we can do. And I think Fulwood Media was a result of that, of me sitting here and talking to a lot of people over 6 months and then going, I know what I can do.
So this wasn't something that was kind of brewing within you whilst you were at ICE. You were, you know, within the Clarion team, you weren't thinking this is a great idea. It's come from actually the departure, and since the departure, it wasn't something you think, I know I need to go away and create Fulwood, you know, something like Fulwood. It's come from that kind of necessity to think, I'll pull together all the experience I have into what this new business is.
Look, I think that we all sit, when we work for big corporates, we all sit there and go, I suppose get frustrated when you're when you ask to do something, the answer is ultimately no. Yeah. It's not the right time, it costs too much, you know, how many staff do you need? And you think, oh, and you go, well, you know, I could do this myself. But I think that those are just words, and I think a lot of people say them and they are just words. I think the hardest bit about Fulwood Media was actually coming up with a name in the end. But I think, no, it was definitely something that came out of a result of me leaving Clarion.
So what is Fulwood? So what, you know, how do you describe and pitch it?
It's really hard to say it is this. I think that what it's there to do is predominantly, I suppose, my thoughts on it. And I think my thoughts are, I want to do things, anything actually, which is supportive of the gaming sector, particularly with those that I have a relationship, which tend to sit in at manager level in the C-suite, or those aspiring to go into the C-suite.
Okay.
So the gaming boardroom was an idea I came up with to really support that group of people.
So the gaming board is something within Fulwood, and so yeah, to be clear about those kind of two brands of the company. So we have Fulwood, which is your company, and the gaming boardroom is is it a website? Is it something that is a kind of a tangible thing within that as well? I just want to explain to people.
I suppose Fulwood is a company that is there to develop projects or ideas that support, I suppose, that group of people in the gaming sector globally.
Okay.
So it can be a variety of things. The gaming boardroom is an idea that I came up with to really support that group at that level. It's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of insight and intelligence. It's a mixture of development of those people and as leaders.
Okay.
There's a lot of gaming news out there. I know you know that, Lewis, because G3 is brilliant at it.
Start competing against us, yeah.
And the world doesn't need another newsletter or news website. There's enough of them. Most of them doing a great job, not quite as good as G3, obviously.
Thank you.
However, but what the gap I found really was there's not a lot out there to help the leaders develop themselves. How do they support their boards? How do they support their staff? Where can they go for information? What's new? So it is a digital site where they can go and find out information, insight and intelligence around all sorts of subject matter.
Okay.
But also it will have a range of small meetings, I guess, and gatherings that are also around that subject matter.
So is this still a concept, or have you gone live now? Is this do we have a website we can go to and have a look directly, or are we still in the planning stages and progress?
If you type in www.thegamingboardroom.com, you'll come up with a page which says coming soon.
Right. Okay.
And that's mainly because you've no idea, or I had no idea quite how talented, well, I knew, but I didn't really know how talented the people were that worked for me at Clarion. It's very easy to come out of meetings and go, we need a new website. And the marketing manager would go, okay. And I go, let me know when it's done. And they'd come back about a month later and they go, here it is. And I go, great. I had no idea how complex that journey was.
Okay.
But I have a really good appreciation of it now. And so having done my first one badly, I'm now moving it to a different platform.
Okay. Okay.
Can do a lot more. So we're going to do a soft launch in August while everyone's on holiday, so we can quietly get the bugs out of it.
Okay.
And then towards September, it should be there in all its glory for everyone to have a look at.
Right. And is this going to be something that everyone can access, or is it going to be a subscription model? How are you kind of what's the access kind of side of things?
It's going to have a free newsletter, which is a collation of articles that I've seen that I think are interesting and that add value. Could be articles that the Gaming Boardroom has written itself through its contributors, or it could be something I've spotted, I don't know, on Harvard Business Review, but also on the New Statesman or the Economist or the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal. I've become an avid reader. We've all got a lot of time to read, or have had a lot of time to read through the pandemic. And I guess so I guess it's just a collation of articles which I find interesting, and there'll be a weekly newsletter that people can go onto the website and just have a look and see what's there and read anything that catches their I suppose their interest. And then really the real insight and intelligence which translates that information and puts it in the context for a gaming leader,
okay,
is something that will be behind and will be subscription or membership.
Okay, and this will be live, definitely live, September.
Well, you say definitely, we all know how these things go, and certainly we are aiming for the beginning of September. So when people come back from their summer holidays, and they're looking to write their budgets for a new financial year, we want to catch that wave so that they're thinking about the future, because this is about the future of leaders, the future of management, the future of businesses. So I wanted to sort of catch that natural wave when people were looking forwards anyway. Okay,
thinking about your time and resources that are available to you, you launched a new company, you've got these, obviously your website launching, but you're also an advisor to the ice show. And I just wonder how much of your week is taken up with that, and how much of your time, because we're months away from the show, but as the show creeps closer, you're going to be drawn obviously more towards that side.
Yeah.
So what does your advisory role entail? What are you giving back to Clarion at this point?
I think most of it is, I was a great one for saying when I was there, look, while I'm in charge, this is the way that we're going to do it. This is the tone of voice. This is the personality. These are the things that I want to look at. When I'm not there anymore, then it's the next leader's opportunity to create something or develop it in their own way with its, and maybe that means the personality will change slightly. However, making that change in the middle of a pandemic is a tall ask for anyone.
Yeah.
And I think, there's been so much uncertainty over the last 18 months, but actually having something familiar, having something that everyone knows how to interact with, they understand their feelings around it and what they need to do, is the safest way to support the industry, certainly over the next couple of years.
Okay.
So I guess my role is with Alex and his team is to try and keep the fundamentals of ice intact. Everyone said at Clarion that I had a pot of fairy dust on my desk, and whenever the subject of ice came up, I would get this little pot and shake a bit of fairy dust, because it did have an emotion. People are emotionally attached to it, and I think it's trying to keep that. So at the moment, it's if I see something, if I think of something, I'm talking to someone. So it's all the stuff that I used to do before, where it was only about Clarion. Now, of course, it's about Fulwood Media and the other projects that I've got, because the Gaming Boardroom is just one of 3 projects that I'm currently developing. It's also feeding back into Clarion Gaming, you should do this, or can I set up a call with this person to have a conversation? They've actually got something really interesting to say, and I think you could develop an idea out of it. So it's hard to say I spend X amount of time on it. It's just I've woven it into the fabric of my working week, I guess. But you're right, it will get more, and I suspect I will have to go into the office for meetings, but I'll deal with that as it comes, I guess.
And does the role actually have teeth, or are you kind of more the face of continuity for the show?
No, it does have teeth. I think if me and Alex have worked out a way that if we disagree with each other, then there's somewhere to take that disagreement.
Okay.
And that actually sits with the chairman of Clarion, Simon Kimball. So we have a monthly meeting, the 3 of us, to talk about the way forward, talk about strategy, talk about ideas, I suppose flesh out some more important things. So yes, it does have teeth. I can't force someone to pick the phone up. I'm not there every day, but certainly these bigger ideas. And I get lots of emails from the team saying, what do you think I should say to this? Or how should I reply to that email? Or is there anything inherent in this with this customer that I should be aware of? Because it's all in my head.
Yeah.
You don't write down all these things all the time. So it's good that the customers, whether it be attendees or exhibitors, know that all the things that they are used to at ICE will still be there, because I'm feeding that in.
Okay. Aside from the kind of physical, practical changes that the pandemic has kind of forced and wrought upon the ice show, your departure, most of most of the actual your original team suggests that the show is fundamentally changing. What do you think's next for ICE, and what level of input control do you obviously you said about in controlling that direction of travel? I think one of the kind of the damning questions really from the land-based sector is that it seems to be favouring iGaming and sports betting. Do you think that's the case? Is that the direction that show's travelling in, and what's your view of where it should go?
Absolutely. ICE will continue to be an event or a brand that serves the entire gaming sector. Having said that, we have to remember that we've just been through a pandemic, that the land-based gaming sector was adversely affected by that, along with a lot of other industries, but not the iGaming industry. Okay. The iGaming industry has come out of this more buoyant, picked up lots of new customers, their revenues have gone up and therefore their profits have gone up. They've been recruiting staff, they've been expanding into new areas, and the explosion of sports betting, particularly in North America, is just one example of that happening. Okay. So they've got a lot of money and they're feeling confident. And and they want to spend that money. However, Alex is very aware, and he has me to support him, that he needs to ensure that ICE is balanced, that the land-based gaming sector arguably should have more support from their main event, more so than some of the other parts of the market. And the show should remain balanced 50-50, land-based and online gaming. And we've got a meeting actually on Monday next week to go through that. But yes, it should remain balanced, and it will remain balanced regardless of who's left there, what relationships they have, what part of the market they came out of. It's incumbent on Alex and the management team there to ensure that it serves every part of the market it should be.
Going back to a little bit under your watch, we saw the expansion of ICE out into ICE Africa and ICE North America, multiple geographies. We're now seeing that kind of almost going back to the core again and supporting the core ICE show in London. Was that expansion a success in your view? Was it driven by obviously the private equity ownership of ICE and Clarion, or was it kind of an organic kind of pull from exhibitors and geographies around the world? And what's your view looking back on that, Kate?
I think it was an organic pull. I had a lot of people calling me or having meetings all over the world saying, oh, can you bring ICE here? Can you bring ICE here? And I think that's a great testament to the brand and the experience and the way that everyone connected with the brand itself in London. I also think they viewed it as if they got an ICE in their territory or region, then it was confirmation that they were doing something well, that part of the market, I suppose, warranted one on one level. Okay. And someone said this to me actually in Africa. Now, the problem with it was that they all wanted a show as big as ICE in London. Right. And that's one of the main things that I had to keep saying, was that the ICE that we took to Africa, particularly because that was the first one, had to be culturally fit in its space. It had to be the size that the market wanted it to be. Okay. It had to fit culturally, because it had to fundamentally work for those that engaged with it. And I think that ICE Africa, and particularly, I think we ran three editions of it. I think such a long time ago now. Yeah. Moved on into a different life.
A lot's happened.
Yeah, I think that it was the right size for what it was, and I think organically it would grow as the market developed, and as maybe iGaming regulation came in Africa, in the different regions, then it would grow somewhat. But I think it was fundamentally right right for the continent it was on. Now, was it right for Clarion? If you took it as a standalone product, it's very hard to justify events that small in a big corporate company. That's just the nature of companies like Clarion, and in fact all the major organisers are exactly the same. Was it right for Clarion Gaming? Absolutely. It supported the main brand. It was supportive of Ice London. It gave a way for those that couldn't travel either because they weren't allowed or they weren't important enough or they couldn't afford it, to engage with the brand in their home, in their backyard, I guess. So was it right for Clarion Gaming? Yes, absolutely. Was it right for Clarion? Maybe not.
Do you think we'll see them come back? Do you think we'll see these geographies come back or not?
Oh, Lewis, I can either put my commercial head on as a business person, or I can put my my strategic head on.
Okay.
Strategy and commerciality sometimes are very different.
Okay. So with those two views, is that a yes and a no, or two no's or two yeses?
I think that Clarion are absolutely doing the right thing at the moment and concentrating on their core products. The event industry, like the land-based gaming industry, has suffered badly. Globally, events are only starting to come back now.
Yeah.
So just like land-based casinos, we followed the same path: absolute lockdown, and now a partial reopening with all sorts of restrictions in place.
Yeah.
So they need to concentrate on their core. They've got a new management team, they've got a new set of rules, and they need to spend their time consolidating and learning. Does that mean that you won't see another event in Africa produced by Clarion Gaming? I don't think so. I think that they will look at it. It may not be a big trade show, but I certainly think they'll be inventive enough to find ways to support it.
Okay, and how different do you see is it going to be a very similar show that we see in February, next year? Is it going to be slightly different, very different, hybrid? Is it going to be an original, traditional, coming back to the same kind of warm feeling of ice? How do you envisage that coming around next year?
I think that in terms of size, it will be very similar.
Okay.
There's been a lot of movements around, some people taking more space, some people taking less space because they've either closed or they're not targeting certain regions, and there's all sorts of reasons, not necessarily COVID reasons, but the pandemic has made them re-look strategically at their own businesses, and they've had to make some changes. But that's just the nature of business and life, I guess. So in terms of size, yes, I think it will be very similar. In terms of the feeling, you've got to remember that the feeling actually comes from the people that attend it, the exhibitors, not from, keeping it purple will help, but it's not the reason why people love it so much. Will it feel the same? I hope it will. I think that actually the first one, people, particularly in the land-based sector, still they'll be starting to look at new product. Not sure that they'll still be where they're making the types of investments they've made in the past, because they need to build their revenues up again. They need to get people back into their casinos. So, I'm not telling you or any of your readers anything new here, but I think certain parts of the market will be buying. Parts of the market will actually just be looking forward to connect and seeing people that they haven't seen for 2 years. So I think, and I keep saying to Alex and trying to get him, you should look at it as like a big festival, a reunion, and actually, let's have some fun. People want some fun, safe fun.
Yeah.
But why don't we do some things which actually help people reconnect in an environment which is conducive, yes, to doing business, but actually just allows people to sit and chew the fat for 20 minutes on a comfortable chair and have a drink or a pastry or, I don't know, a cognac if they're French. I don't, you know. So it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I think that one of the biggest lessons that I learned when I came in is, particularly the land-based industry, is all about relationships. And you have to allow those to flourish. And they need to create spaces and an environment which allows that to happen. And I think the show will be better for that if they do it.
Obviously, saving one of the big questions to last. Will the ice show dislocate from London? What pressures are there at the minute in terms of, you know, determining whether this happens? Is it the exhibitors, the attendees, a lot of stats and data on the table? Is it the push within Clarion? What's going to happen, Kate? No.
Look, ICE needs to serve its market. If it wants to continue to be and sit at the centre of it, the sector that it operates in, which is the global gaming sector, it needs to serve its market. And I think that the thoughts around how it does that from the audience's point of view, so from exhibitors and the attendees, has changed and gone up and down all the time over the pandemic. I don't want to travel abroad. I don't want to get on an aeroplane. That country's got more COVID infections than this country. I like London. I like Munich. I like Madrid. And I think it's been an emotional roller coaster for everyone, including Clarion, me, exhibitors, attendees, and everyone's got an opinion about it.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I did when I signed my contract back with Clarion was I encouraged them to do some research in the operator group. Clarion's always been very good about doing a lot of manufacturing or supplier research, and in fact they've done a lot over the last year, but they hadn't done a lot necessarily with the operators in Europe.
Okay.
And I think that, look, without trying to second guess, if you're in America, London, Amsterdam, Madrid, does it, apart from an emotional desire to go to London, does it make much difference? I'm not sure that it would affect them in the same way as some, you know, an operator in Vienna or Greece.
Okay.
So they're doing that now. So sorry, it's a very long rambling answer.
No, I mean it's been on the cards. It's been on the cards. It's been the question. Even mid part of your tenure within Clarion, you were asking. I remember asking you this question repeatedly on multiple occasions. It's been debated in different magazines and different kind of there seemed to be a pull from some of the exhibitors at some point. My interest would be, if you are questioning whether the operators want a shift, whether the attendees actually want to see a relocation, or is it certain elements within the exhibitors, the big exhibitors that feel as though with Brexit happening and how big a factor that potentially is or isn't at the moment, should the show actually move to mainland Europe? And that's been a while, but I didn't know whether the pandemic has actually catalyzed that or not.
I think everyone's become a bit more vocal, and I think there are more people who have an opinion. The only thing I would say is you can't please all the people all the time.
Okay.
So regardless of what happens to it or where it ends up, whether it remains in London or doesn't move, not everyone's going to be happy with that decision.
Okay.
However, ICE and Clarion Gaming and ultimately Clarion Events have to make a decision based on a majority answer to the question that they're currently asking the operators. And I think, and it's not just asking the people that attend ICE, it's actually asking people who don't attend ICE as well.
Yeah.
And I know they reached out to G3 to help with that research to make sure that they got as broad expanse as possible from the operator group. And when those results, I think the results are still going to be a couple of weeks off, and then they'll make a decision on it. But it's unfortunately the majority rules. How they then, but I think the interesting thing, Lewis, is how they then support the minority.
Okay.
Because look, everyone's important, and yes, ICE is a big show and they need to support the majority, but I'm also talking to them about how maybe Fulwood Media can support the minority in whatever the answer is to that big question. So and how I can, I suppose, support the ICE brand in not forgetting the minority. The minority are important. It's that 80-20 rule, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is kind of the kind of lifeblood of the show as well. It's the kind of the interesting part of the show. It's not just the usual suspects. It's every other part of it as well.
Yeah.
Thinking back to the show and your time running it, and don't want to get too nostalgic about things, but I was just wondering what you consider your proudest achievements during your time at Clarion. And I suppose, you know, we're not saying that you're not with them now, but will it feel different as you're contributing from a, you know, a kind of more external point of view? But what do you take from those moments within Clarion, and how are you using those and experiences now in what is probably the next stage of your career, where you're actually setting up Fulwood, where you are launching the gaming boardroom? I'm just wondering what do you take from that, and what do you look back on and reflect on and actually want to build upon in terms of your new company as well? Big question, I know, but I'm sure there must be key points that you remember from ICE that you think that was pivotal. Whether it was the, you know, setting up the part with the reaction to the go-go dances and it going into the Guardian, your response to that, and how coolly that was handled at the time. You know, there were key moments under your watch that we can remember.
Yeah, I think the thing that despite all those things that happened over the time that I was there, I think, you know, on one level, although it took me some time to get over myself having left Clarion, because obviously it wasn't my choice.
Yes.
And to emotionally get more on an even keel. One of the things that I am very grateful to Clarion for is allowing me to be me. And well, I know that they used to look down and go, we're not quite sure what happens on that floor in the building, but whatever's happening, it's working, because look at ICE and look at the development that's happening, and look at, you know, the relationships that are having on, and what the market is now asking ICE to do for them.
Yeah.
There's a trust there. And I think, so I never used to get too much interference, only at budget time, but then I sort of expected that. But I think some of the proudest things that I've done is that development of it. I don't know if you can think back to that 2010 or 11, or that last event in Earl's Court.
Yeah.
And I mean, ICE was not on its knees, but it wasn't a happy place. If you compare it with what it is now. So being part of that journey to take it from that to where it is now is hugely satisfying. But I think alongside that, you know, having a member of your team join, a new member of your team, and then you can see it in them, that light suddenly goes on behind their eyes, and they go, I get it. I get ICE. I get everything about it. I'm now fully signed up to the ICE fan club. And the way that they operated in the office, the way that they spoke to people, the care and attention they took, the ideas that they had, it's just an amazing thing, Lewis. You know, it's just amazing to get this happy team, not always happy, because not everyone likes working till 10 o'clock at night, you know, because you're dealing with America or Vegas, or you've got customers in Vegas, or getting up early because you're dealing with stuff in Japan. Yeah. But fundamentally, I think there's so many things, but it's that light and that journey that I went on, and the experiences which allowed that to happen, which I learned from all the time. I guess. Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, it leads on to the final question I wanted to put to you on the podcast, was that when kind of things came to a halt with Clarion in October last year, did you consider leaving the gaming industry and taking your experience into new sectors, or is gaming in your veins? I mean, that point of epiphany you said that some of your team members had when they saw the light, they reckoned they got ice, they got what it was. Can that be switched off as well and you go off into other things, or is it something that's kind of baked into you?
I've never had a connection with an industry that I've worked in before similar to the one that I've had within gaming. So if I was going to go into an industry, gaming would always be my choice. And I suppose it's the most recent and where I've been accepted the most as a person, regardless of the fact that I'm a woman or I'm British, Brexit and all,
Yeah.
However, interestingly, over the time when the events industry got to know that I was not working anymore, they started to reach out to me. So I currently sit on a panel that works with the Women in Exhibitions Network in the UK. They're part of a much larger organisation, a global organisation. So I work with them. I'm a mentor within that group to youngsters coming up through the exhibition and events industry in the UK. I sit on the conference panel for the UK events industries event, Confex.
Okay.
And I, funnily enough, although it's not quite right the time for me, they want me to look at the editorially at that magazine and maybe do a guest editor stint.
Okay.
And it's interesting, some of the feedback. I network really well in gaming. I've never been a big one to network within the events industry particularly. But it's interesting how many of them have reached out to me, have said, oh my God, would you look at this? Or can I pick your brains for 5 minutes? Because I think ICE was one of those events in the UK exhibition industry which was held up as a great example of a brand, of an experience.
Yeah.
And maybe those gaming people that attended us didn't notice, but there was always a lot of European event organisers at the event, being shown around or looking at features, and they used to ring me up and say, do you mind if we come? I was like, no, absolutely come. And I said, but if you come, you've got to do one thing. You just got to sit down somewhere and not say anything and just let yourself feel what's going on. And I'm a great believer in that. And but it's so hard to replicate, Lewis. So but they had to come and look at it, I guess. So
it sounds as though Fulwood has offered you a greater variety of opportunities as well as but still keep most of that interest in the gaming industry, but has kind of opened up more doors as well. Yeah,
and I'm happy to do any of that, or anything for either the events industry or the gaming industry. I know Clarion at the time said, we think you're probably going to go into a gaming company, a gaming manufacturer, and help them. I'm not actually sure that they looked at me and probably didn't even think, well, I don't know what she can do. I mean, what does she do? But obviously did quite a lot. But for me, it was gaming more than the events industry, which is why Fulwood Media is looking at 3 big projects in the gaming space, I guess.
Okay, well, we know obviously of the launch in September of the Gaming Boardroom. We look forward to following you and seeing what other things that you kind of reveal over that time. Obviously, you're steering the course of ICE. Hopefully, we all have vested interest in that show being a great one come February. And in the meantime, thank you for chatting honestly and openly about everything that you've been involved in over the last 6 months. It sounds as though it's been as I said at the beginning, quite a roller coaster, hokey-cokey ride of different things that you've had to kind of pull yourself out of what has been a hugely successful role up till now, but it sounds as though you've got so many things in, so many irons in the fire at the moment that we'll be seeing more of you, not less of you, coming up. So yeah, thank you very much, Kate, for being involved in the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure, and always happy to chat.
Yes, I look forward to more of that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.